How's it going, everyone? Marcus El-Sarraf here with my cousin,
Mike Clark.
Mike Clark. And there's been a lot of talk over the past week. As you know, on Monday, Zelina Vega was released from WWE. Now, apparently, a big reason for that is because she's all for unionization in the world of pro wrestling. Now, Mike here, he works for USW, which is a big union up here in Canada, and it actually represents ACTRA, which is the Canadian Actors Union. So I just thought, this would be a good time to bounce some things off of him to see if he feels that a union in pro wrestling would work. So just straight up, do you feel a union in pro wrestling would work?
Absolutely. It's actually incredible that they don't have such, being entertainment and sports combined. Most actors who try to find a sector of the entertainment business that's not unionized, it's almost impossible. And with major sports and professional sports, you're going to see that they're all associations or unions. NFL, um, NHL, and NBA or Major League Baseball, they're all unionized. So these are two things that are combined. You have sports, you have entertainment, both naturally are
Of course.
unionized, and the fact that when they're together they're not is perplexing to me.
So for this long a time, wrestlers have always been considered independent contractors, no matter where that they've been. And as you know, Jesse Ventura actually did try to start something in the '80s, got ratted out. Vince found out, and apparently that led to his release and his long-standing feud with Hulk Hogan, personal feud with Hulk Hogan. But there's a big standing that they won't unionize because of Vince. A few wrestlers are union members already through ACTRA. You know, if they've acted in things beforehand, Chris Jericho, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. All these people do have union benefits. And now, as someone who represents someone like that, do you feel that it's fair to a union like ACTRA to have to represent, so like if they get hurt in the ring or something like that, compared to a Chris Pratt who doesn't necessarily do that kind of stuff?
Well, I just want to clear up one thing real quick. Is in Canada, you are 100% protected that your employer cannot fire you for union involvement or activity.
Right.
It's prohibited grounds. If this happens to anybody happen to be watching this, there is legal recourse. It just can't happen. In America, the laws are a lot more lax. You're going to find that they've been whittled away. I don't know for sure. I can't speak on south of the border, but it's a little more precarious. So, you mentioned a couple Canadian names there, and they've gone to ACTRA for their film career. I think if they were to say that their home residence or an employer is in a Canadian company, they should be fine legally. But yeah, so I speak a lot, so sorry everyone.
So
When we talk about unions duty or fair representation, if Marcus, you're even more famous than you are now, and you join the actor world and are also a pro wrestler and get hurt, well, if you're not on my job site and you're not performing the duties of an actor, um, I would help you find the tools that you would need, but I wouldn't be under any obligation financially, legally, morally to help you out because you're out of my control and I don't control that workforce. So that's kind of my answer.
okay, yeah, because like I'm sure that was a big thing. You know, stuntmen, as you know in history, are very hard to insure on that kid because there is always a risk of that. And you know, it is kind of hard to find, like you said, the balance between sports and entertainment in between there. And now something that a union usually does instigate is like things like time off
Yeah.
for wrestlers and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who've been saying that WWE or any organization should have an off season similar to baseball, football, basketball, um, and things like base pay for wrestlers. Now Ryback, Ryan Reeves, the former Ryback, Ryan Reeves, when he left WWE 4 years ago, one of his big complaints was that not getting paid enough, and he feels that wrestlers should be on a base salary. Now, there's a lot of people who have balked at that, saying he thinks he should get paid as much as John Cena or The Rock or someone like that. Do you feel like that the union would implement something like that, or?
Yeah, for sure the structure and an outsider looking in, it looks like the system isn't set up for equality. I think if you had a base salary. The story writers are going to dictate what your outcomes are and how popular you are. And that's going to come with work ethic and, your charisma and all that good stuff. If you had a base salary and then on top of that, your merchandise, anything that you can do outside, you get sponsors. I mean, look at Tiger Woods. I mean, how much money does he actually get paid for golfing and how much does he get for sponsorships?
This is very true. This is 100% true. Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, but I
One
mean,
thing,
it doesn't hurt the business. It's something I get sick of hearing. It's like, oh, you get unionized workers, everyone's going to get lazy. Again, look at the NHL. You got, Wayne Gretzky, and he's got to have every record you can imagine. He had some sort of base salary, but then when he was getting the Reebok and the other endorsements, he loved the game. He was super talented. But if you're talking about motivation, there's a lot of motivation there to go out, represent the sport well, and to do a good job and to draw people in, which is good for events. It's good for whoever the promoter is. So I don't see a problem.
Mr. Brown. Okay, no. That's good. That's the kind of stuff I wanted to hear. Now, there's also been a lot of things of how it would affect things like the drug testing policy, how it would affect releases from the company, because nowadays, we see it all the time. Like creative has nothing for you, so we can't use you anymore. That kind of stuff. Now, would that kind of affect everything? Like, can Vince just say we have nothing for you, Mike? You're done here, or would there have to be more to it? That
So there is a problem with the basic. I'm in the labor union world, where seniority is number one. But when you go into athletics, you don't see seniority playing the part that you would imagine. It wouldn't make sense for them keeping the 65-year-old NFL centers when there's a 20-year-old that could go out and do it. So it would take some retooling. It's not a cookie cutter. But you also should have pride and dignity on how you're going to let people go and use them, and maybe be creative. So some of the lines of work you were saying about drug testing, I represented people in iron ore mines, completely precarious, very dangerous work. The drug tests were very straightforward. They're impaired. They're fired. Um, Unions don't stop that. I don't want anyone impaired at work. That's a bold statement, but if you're impaired, go home. Don't come to work. You're just going to endanger everybody else.
especially in the wrestling world.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, you imagine, like, I mean, they talk about back in the 70s and early 80s with, Andre drinking all the beer and going out, and we don't know if he's going to put someone over.
If he's going to lay there.
Yeah,
That's happened before, too.
exactly. You just get the crap kicked out of him. So, I mean, those days are dead and gone, thank God. We don't want these atmospheres where people are out loose cannons. And the union principle isn't to protect someone who's clearly in the wrong. We would ask questions like, does Marcus have a drug addiction? Does he have some sort of help that he could need? Has he, been tested properly? I mean, these are questions we're gonna ask, but if it's no addiction, no problems, clearly known that he came in under the influence and endangered other people's lives, I walk away. I wouldn't even entertain representing someone who is going to act that way.
All right, but there's been talk over the past few years, how WWE does nowadays have a more strict drug testing policy since Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, all these people. But there are ones like the one behind us, Brock Lesnar right here, whose physique has been questionable at certain points in time in his WWE tenure, and a lot of people feel it's unfair to not maybe kind of skip Brock Lesnar's drug testing while drug testing Drew McIntyre because he's a full-time guy or someone like that. And would that
Yeah, no, I don't believe in that at all. I think that they're exploiting somebody. They're putting their health at risk. I think it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Why don't you do this? And we'll find a way to. I just hope Brock makes it to 50 because when they weren't testing, and when they were looking the other way on drug tests, I mean, how many stars in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s didn't make it to 50 because of heart failure? And they can link that back to drug abuse. If they're finding a loophole, so Brock made them a lot of money.
Part-time. Well, no, the thing is that Brock is a part-timer, so maybe same thing with Undertaker, another Undertaker up here. But the drug testing policy, there may be a loophole where it's only their full-time talent or their full-load talent.
I never heard tell of a workplace that will have two different sets of rules depending on the hours that you work when it comes to safety or well-being, or at times legislation, because steroids are not legal. So you can't openly use it, and if it's impacting your demeanor or your ability to work safely, it needs to be hindered.
Yeah, that's good. And all of the WWE's big networks, NBC, Universal, Fox, most of their shows are unionized, so it's not going to make a big deal in that case scenario. No. And it could also, if they do tend to unionize, it could also affect, the writers, the backstage people, the producers, the agents, and everyone that works back there. One big thing that a lot of people have said, more anti-union based is independent pro wrestling. Now, much like ACTRA, if you're part of ACTRA, you can't do independent type work unless you get permission beforehand. What's going to happen if certain wrestlers are part of a union, like in a WWE, AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, but then they get let go from one of those companies and they have to work independent shows? Is that going to affect?
No, absolutely not. So I represent the United Steelworkers, and I'm going to take the time now to say
Sure.
everything I'm saying right now is my opinion. I am not speaking on behalf of my organization. These are my own free opinions that my cousin asked me to speak on tonight, and yeah, no problem. So that's just a disclaimer. Now I represent the United Steelworkers of America. I'm also I can't be part of that union if I'm representing that union, so I'm part of an organization called SRU. So I'm a unionized employee who services unionized employees. It's a weird chicken and egg thing. However, whatever I want to do right now, they don't have any non-compete clauses. I can go out and I can work at Wendy's tomorrow or any fast food place, not giving Wendy's a shout out. I can shovel driveways. I can work for whatever I want as long as the job that I'm doing is not impacted in any reasonable manner. So I can imagine Vince or whoever, Cody, wanting to have people healthy and available for work.
Yeah.
And it would make sense if I were an owner of an organization. I would want to make sure that the risks are minimum on your free time. But that's not a union thing. That's an agreement you would have with the employer. It brings me back to Sidney Crosby was out on a boat with Mario Lemieux, the owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he was doing flips off the boat. And Mario lost his mind and said, "If you hurt yourself, you're costing this organization, the Pittsburgh Penguins, maybe millions of dollars because you want to do somersaults. Are you out of your mind?" And basically forbid him from doing it. Mario is Sidney Crosby's father-in-law, so he has a little more clout. But I mean, let's call it what it is. If I know an employee is out, potentially doing unsafe work that's going to impact my business, I'd put that rider in, saying, these are the type of activities I don't want you to do. But that's not.
Could that be written into a contract?
Yeah.
They feel like that could be put into, because like right now a big thing is that a lot of these wrestlers had to shut down like their Twitch streams and everything like that, and that was a new system implemented because WWE wants a cut of these third party, which a lot of people, including myself, are calling bullshit on right now, and for something that they have nothing to do with. And what you were just saying. As long as they're not endangering it. If they were on Twitch, like you said, doing backflips off the top of the houses,
yeah,
maybe you could say something there. But no, if they're playing video games or they're,
even if they're just announcing matches, refereeing, showing up, it's a really good question, and I haven't put any thought into it at all. How much of your character and likeness is not yours and is created by the writing staff and, the creative development in, an organization like WWE. And how much of that do they own? I mean, we're not all going to change our name to Warrior to try to beat royalties.
Jim Hellwig did. And he did for a while. He
is a special
but
man.
Like, another one, Undertaker, right behind us right here. Undertaker's real name is Mark Calloway. Mm-hmm. He was not born in a graveyard, not born, in Death Valley. The WWE did create his whole character, and that was a big thing, because now Undertaker, if he would have gone to WCCW back in the day or AEW right now, he cannot use the name Undertaker.
Right.
So do you feel that would be a fair?
So that's really tough. Um,
He's been the character for 30 years now.
he's been the character. I don't know what the creative control issue is on that. I honestly, this is not a union. It's more of a logistic.
A personal, yeah.
Yeah,
Because I know that Vince gave Dwayne Johnson The Rock. The Rock is allowed to be The Rock wherever he goes, but that was an agreement between Vince and Dwayne. And so, but like to get back what I was asking about beforehand. Okay, so if a pro wrestler is released from WWE, cannot find work in AEW, they don't need him for anything they don't want for, or Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling up here in Canada, they're a Canadian company now. So they can't find work anywhere, and the only thing they can do to sustain their living as a professional wrestler is to work an independent show. I'm just asking because, yeah, like if you're an ACTRA member and you do an independent feature, they tend to get very mad at that kind of stuff. So if you're part of a wrestlers union, whatever it may be called, will they get upset if they find, oh, he's working independent shows in Toronto? Is that something that could?
yeah. So I mean, if we were to enter into this, there would be a set of bylaws that would be put into place where these issues would come in. So I mean, the last thing, we've thrown around ACTRA a few times. The last thing we want is people undercutting other people. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, plumbers are a good example of this. If you have a ticket and a license to be a plumber, then you go through this organization and then you're assigned jobs. And if the big job's coming up, you're going to charge the same rate of pay and it's always going to be uniform. And then some people will have this and they'll be on that rotation list and then they'll say, you know what, this weekend I'm just going to go out and bang out, 20, 30 toilet unclogs and do it for
What a
half the
call!
price
What a
and
call!
do it for, half the price
Sure.
and just fill my pocket. No, good for them, but bad for the system.
Mm-hmm.
And if people start doing that, so now we just devalued the amount that it costs to unclog a toilet. And then when you actually do try to charge them the full price, no one's going to accept it, and they're always going to be looking for someone that's going to have the weekend off to do it. So when you go into ACTRA and you're like, I'm not part of the, I'm going to do this over here for Skittles, and just to get exposure, which I think
Right.
is the big thing that they'll say. So you're going to do the work for free, where they would typically pay someone something to do, and you're devaluing the organization, the industry, and your work, and don't do it. Um,
Don't work for free.
don't work for free, or Skittles, I think is the one
Peanuts.
that.
Peanuts. So yeah, wonderful. So at the end of the day, you feel that a union in pro wrestling is long overdue. After
I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, the longevity. I don't understand how Lloyd's of London was huge.
right, that was a huge one, and they stopped insuring wrestlers because they got too expensive.
So now what? An independent contractor damages himself. Let's say they're mid card their entire life. Can no longer work. They're performing their job every day to a suitable level, and then they can no longer lace up their boots, and away you go. That's completely unacceptable. And then let's say it the other way, it becomes a popularity contest. If you're if you're in the clique, you're going to make a lot of friends, a lot of money, and if you're not, you don't. People are going to be thrown out. I mean, there's lots of examples of that. And then the last point I'll say on it, pro rah rah union, is you get a lot of discrimination about race, sexual preferences, creed.
In
The,
pro wrestling, also another is body
yeah,
image. Body, yeah. Vince has a big up for muscle bound kind of guys. Like it's changed in the past a little bit thanks to Triple H's influence,
yeah.
but it still is there. And I'm sure if the 7'5" guy with pure muscle walks in, he's gonna go that way again.
But I mean, when WCW was closing, there were all these lawsuits that were out about people, Asian people were getting less
Right?
opportunities. There
Or
were all
black
these
people.
lawsuits that were going on. If you had a base wage and you had an understanding and a contract, I represent over, I don't know, 3,000 people right now, and I don't have those arguments with employers. Why did you get the job? It was these are the set of rules. We look at your clock number. We don't look at who you are, where country you might come from or your parents come from. We don't look at that. And then it doesn't become an issue when it comes to hiring promotions or ability to do the job. So if you have a group of people that are equally able to do the job, I think, I'm not a Vince fan, but if you have a certain role to fill, those people are going to get the job. You don't give the job for the monster to the 5'3" person. That doesn't make any sense. But if you have these jobs open, there's qualifications that you got to meet, and then you keep them as long as you're doing your job in a reasonable, respectable, honest way of doing the work and safe. I don't understand who would rat out Jesse and
You don't know who, brother?
Ventura. I don't want to speculate, but
Well, yeah, because like we saw these, and especially nowadays, you see people like superstar Billy Graham had one a while ago, Perry Saturn as well, where they're broke and they're asking people online, whether it's through GoFundMe's or just through YouTube videos, whatever, they're asking people for donations because they don't have any more. A lot of people point that into you should have saved your money when you had it. But a lot of people, there's also, there should be retirement pay for pro wrestlers. The NFL has it. They have it. They have these things in place for these athletes. So there should, in reality, be something for a professional wrestler.
yeah, and I'm not up on what the current salaries or per show wages are, but I know someone personally who was on an episode of Monday Night Raw and he made less than $100.
That was there was the fee has gone up and down over the years. It's 100, it's 250, 300, something like that. But the thing is, a lot of people also pointed to, WWE just announced its most profitable year ever. Right before they announced that, they laid off, 25, 30, 30 wrestlers, 30 between wrestlers, producers, backstage people. And like, that's not a very, like, it's very confusing. It's like you have this influx of money coming in, yet you're letting all these people go. And
They're going to let the wrong person go. And what really drives any business, any show, any organization is the support of their customers. And we're the customers. I mean, they let,
they let Cody go, and he started a company.
Yeah, exactly.
And that company competes with him now.
Yeah, they're going to let the wrong person go, and they're going to lose a lot of fan base. And even independents, if they're not treating the person that you respect or admire properly, stop going. Hurt them for a week, hurt them for 2 weeks, whatever. Go to a movie instead of the show. That's how you show your support to the people that you like, by giving them money to the organization. So, if I went to one of your shows and I find out that you're not being compensated or treated fairly, and, a group of 20 of us, 100 of us stop going, they're going to get the message loud and clear that this is what needs to change in order for us to come back. And you want to hurt someone, take away their money.
That's the only way people understand. That's the only way that rich people understand.
Rich
through
people.
The wallet. Mike, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Unionize Wrestling.